It is Wednesday, December 26th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little coin metal. And a Merry Christmas to all of you out there who do celebrate it. My apologies for not having been here on Monday, but of course that was Christmas Eve, and so we were gathering with family and all that business. So, I have to have my time off every once in a while here. I do this 3 days a week, 3 hours a day, and so I got to get me some time, some family time and whatnot. Anyway, I hope you all had an excellent evening for that day, and that you were able to get together with friends and family and whatnot. I certainly was. Not as much family as I would have liked. There were a few people that were not there, but, people sometimes can't get over themselves, and so, these things happen. Anyway, as far as, it was a pretty good get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. We covered a little bit of back stuff today, and I'll be honest, the rear naked choke is probably the most clumsy movement I can try and get in. There's one or two others that I'm even worse at, but that's out of the submissions, that's probably the toughest for me to put together right. And I don't know, it's just all the moving parts. I'm much more prone to go for your arm than I am for your neck. But we covered a little bit of some of the back take stuff today. One of them being what kind of choke was that? I want to say it was kind of like it's a zipper choke from the back, and I really like that one, honestly. And we were starting from the you being on the side of your opponent and them having an underhook, and it starts off with this weird back step, and I didn't realize it, but your beginning position for your knees is very, very important with that one. If you don't have your knee right up against the guy's head when you drive your elbow behind his arm and try and step backward with your other foot, it's kind of weird. And you end up having to scramble to get all the way around. And so, I was having a little bit of difficulty with that, but I'll be honest, it was my first day back in 4 days. So, Friday was the last day that I was actually at Jiu-Jitsu, and then there was, of course, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday that I did not go to Jiu-Jitsu. So, I had to make up for it today. But, anytime I have more than 2 days off, it's always a slow start for me. And I feel like I tweaked my back a little bit. I'm certainly going to have to try and lay down and stretch it out a little bit today. Maybe I can work that kink out. But anyway, as far as jiu-jitsu goes, I had a pretty good roll session. 2 rounds with 2 different individuals. And the first one, basically, it was positional sparring with your opponent having your back. Not necessarily having it all the way, not a full seatbelt or anything like that, but just basically being on your side and then being right on top of your shoulder, getting ready to take your back. One overhook over the shoulder, and then one underhook under the other arm. And I didn't have too much trouble flattening back out, and that was the goal of it, is either flatten out or to just get the upper hand on your opponent, switch positions with them. And I did not do that, but I think it was the first guy that I rolled with. He did hold it a little bit longer than my having regained. And so, but I did manage to change the position on him one time, and I think he did that. I think he did that to me once too. Oh no, several times. But it seemed like for the most part, I was managing to flatten out. That was like the minimum requirement. And I didn't have too much trouble getting to the back. It was just a matter of doing like a reverse shrimp kind of thing, where you put your feet about halfway from from 45 degrees to having your heels up against your butt, and you kind of pull yourself to your heels. And if you keep it short, keep the stroke short, it's usually a pretty powerful way to reposition your body. And so, I tried it a couple ways, where I was pulling it into like a shrimp, so I was going into a circular pattern, and then also trying to just snatch myself right out from under him. And both seemed to be relatively effective. I didn't have too much trouble getting out of the back take position, and that's kind of par for the course for me. If I can keep one hand interfering with the choke, just one, normally I can get up on one of the hips or roll over, and like if I get one of your feet, forget about it. I'm going to use that as an anchor to basically pull myself to where I've got you in a half guard, going from you having my back to me being on top and having you in a half guard, or you having me in a half guard position. One of the two. Anyway, that's been kind of a signature escape for me for quite a while, really, and it served me well today. So anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. I got a ton of tabs open. I'm certainly going to be sorting through them and seeing exactly where we want to go with this show today, because like I said, man, I got 8 different directions at least that I've got 3 tabs to support. I've just been busy for the last 4 days just accumulating tabs on stuff that interested me enough to talk about on the show. So anyway, like I said, let's go ahead and throw down into some music. And I want some body count, but I don't want to. We normally start with body count anyway, so that's what it's going to be. Bloodlust, First Dance here on Coin Metal. And that was 12-Foot Ninja with Kingdom. Yeah. And as I've said multiple times on this show, this is your kingdom. That is the whole crypto life thing, isn't it? That we should be running our own currencies. Because obviously some people have been not very good with it. Yeah, I've been making bubble hash lately, and that's really fun. I had all the leaf left over from my stuff last year, and I put it in the freezer and shit. And normally I do that with dry ice, but I've found that it puts way too much plant matter into your material, and so I wanted to try and get rid of that. And I think there's got to be some sort of like middle ground with regard to doing it with bubble bags, because honestly I feel that is the best like tool to do it. But I think there's got to be something that I'm missing, or that I can use instead of like force, that'll break up the material. And I'm working on it. I'm not asking for suggestions or assistance on that. I'm working on it. Anyway, so I tried doing it the standard way, and the biggest problem that I have with it is that once you get down there through that last mesh, you get material that gets down through there, and I mean like good, really good material, and you want to get that stuff. And so I've been trying to figure out a way to get it, and I've tried siphoning the excess off the top, and that seems to work in getting rid of the macro material, but it's getting down to the stuff that settles on the bottom. And I happen to notice that the plant matter will tend to float, like if you stir it up a little bit, the plant matter will float on the surface for a little bit before it settles back down. And that's when you want to suck that stuff off there, because you don't want that in your shit. Anyway, so yeah, I tried a little sample of it today, and honestly, I thought this was Tuesday all fucking day today. if that's any kind of any kind of indicator. Yeah. So anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, I got so much stuff, but I want to start with this one because I voted for this man 3 times, even though he only ran for president officially twice. But I was so disillusioned with the options available that I wrote him in anyway this time. And I actually, no. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I wrote him in the second time. This last time I actually voted for John McAfee. I'm probably going to vote for him again. And I guess he's kind of running. Even though he doesn't seem to be terribly enthusiastic about actually winning. And so, I don't know, it's more a protest vote than anything at this point. But only because there's certain things that Trump has done that I've actually enjoyed. I thought it was a good idea. And honestly, I think the tariffs, one of the misreads I feel about that is that imports and exports have associated costs, and one of the chief among them is transportation. So when you think about it, if there's a tariff applied to something that would inhibit the desire to offshore the labor for it, that would provide more jobs here in the U.S., right? And not initially. Now, first there would be a drop in supply on the market. There would be a notable increase in demand versus available supply, and the companies would then be motivated to build another motherfucking factory and fill it full of motherfucking people and get those products going out the motherfucking door. Make them numbers, people. But, you got to have demand for it. You got to have an indicator for it, right? Well, what kind of demand do you have for the labor here when you can get it a dime on the dollar across the ocean, and you get some sort of tariff relief because of the existing trade situation between you and their government? And that's all well and good for the people in China, but it doesn't put anybody here to work. You got to be putting those people to work. Now, I see in this, though, there's like a, I don't know how to put it. There's like a growing, it's not really a deficit or a lack of interest in maintaining the status quo with regard to, drive to work 5 days a week and bust your ass for somebody else and all that other shit. And it seems like there's this call for universal basic income, which I find to be completely silly because the money's got to come from somewhere, right? And if it's not coming from an employer, it's coming from somewhere else. It's either being stolen from somebody else or it's being misappropriated somehow, but it's not in quote-unquote legitimate commerce that all that's happening in. There's a lot of fuckery behind the scenes with the books and all that other shit to make it happen. And, anyway, I don't think that the universal basic income will work. However, what I do see is this, that there's a need for people to be doing something, right? There is a need in the public to be involved or have an actual stake in the thing. They have to be earning more than they will, standing on a fucking assembly line or a cash register or some other bullshit like that. They got to be getting a fucking equitable turn for minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years of their lives. Because that's really what's going on here, man. You're selling your time, right? But you're not being compensated. I feel. I've never felt appropriately compensated when I was working for somebody else. I felt like I was getting kind of shortchanged there. However, when you start thinking about cryptocurrencies, you have two ends where there's suddenly a place for all of those people that want a stake in the thing that they are participating in. There's mining, and there's providing markets for things to be transacted for and from cryptocurrencies. So, doing what you do today, say you got some sort of hobby, you do macrame or some shit like that, and you could, say, fulfill an actual order. Like if somebody were to say, I want a pot holder for my plant, I want it about 4 feet long, and I want it in red, and I want black rocks on it, and all that other stuff. And you could take that order, and you could fulfill that order. If you could actually make it, they could pay you. And it doesn't matter where they are, it doesn't matter when they pay you, or when the transaction actually happens. But if you can produce on one end, we can produce with cryptocurrencies on the other, without any intermediaries and without doing this shit off-chain. That's the kind of thing that's enabled with cryptocurrency. So the people that are working right now, they don't really have any stake in it, and they're just roasting under those CFLs all day. They could be sitting at the comfort of their own home, weaving up a macrame thing, maybe having some miners running in the background. A little bit of white noise, kind of numb the day. Make up some fucking macrame. Sell that shit on a cryptocurrency taking marketplace. If there's not one available, make one. The barrier for entry there is really fucking low too. So, the traditional things that would inhibit person-to-person digital commerce are dissolving before our very eyes. I see it all the time on Facebook. I'm in several Facebook groups, and I see shit all the time. Gun accessories, knives, fucking fishing tackle, all kinds of things that people are pimping that they're making themselves. And that's like a little closet industry for them. And one of the gentlemen that I know that makes fishing lures, I've never met him in person, but he does excellent work. He posts pictures of his shit all the time. So that people are instant messaging him or getting a hold of him some other way, and they're doing some commerce. Now, if they were doing so in cryptocurrencies, there wouldn't even be an event happening in the Federal Reserve System at all. The commerce itself would be entirely separate from the global economy that's denominated rather in fiat currencies issued by national governments, or rather their central banks or whatever. Anyway, I've been kind of leading up to this, and this is a article here on CCN, and I'm not seeing an author right off the bat, so I'm starting to wonder if this is just like an aggregated thing. Yeah, let's go for it. Pro-Bitcoin Ron Paul. It's time to abolish Federal Reserve, embrace tax-free crypto. I couldn't agree more. December 21st, 2018, at I guess 12:01 CET. And again, no figuring as to who actually wrote this. So continuing on. Retired U.S. Congressman Ron Paul, a Bitcoin skeptic turned proponent, reiterated his calls to abolish the Federal Reserve shortly after it raised the baseline interest rate a 0.25 percentage point to a range of 2.25% to 2.5%. This is the fourth time that the Fed, the central banking system of the United States, raised interest rates in 2018. The move sparked renewed fears of a U.S. recession that could potentially trigger a global recession in 2019. Ron Paul said the Federal Reserve should let the free market dictate interest rates instead of artificially manipulating them. I agree. If that shit were up to competition, they'd compete. Paul, the Fed distorts the economy. Quote, "The Fed has no idea what rates should be," Paul tweeted. "The Fed manipulates prices, distorts the economy, and makes decisions by looking at the data of a distorted economy. Central planning produces a world of economic delusions. America needs to get back to reality and the Fed." The Fed has no idea what rates should be, blah, blah, blah. I guess these were several tweets. Anyway. This is not the first time that Ron Paul, the father of the current U.S. Senator Rand Paul, has called to abolish the Federal Reserve. As CCN reported on October 2018, Ron Paul trashed the Fed for manipulating interest rates, saying that such artificial machinations could actually cause a recession. This in turn could bring about the death of fiat currency, he said. Quote, "It is likely that the next Fed-created recession will come sooner rather than later," Paul said. "This could be the major catastrophe that leads to the end of fiat currency." Paul said the only way to avoid a Fed-created recession is to let people use alternative currencies like Bitcoin to exempt cryptocurrencies, and to exempt cryptocurrencies from taxes. And on that note, I would say that it's not really the place of a national government to be attaching interest rates or determining interest rates or anything else about a currency that you're creating. Continuing on. Paul said central banks constantly increase and decrease the money supply to control the economy by manipulating interest rates. He said the Federal Reserve's cyclical manipulation of interest rates causes an artificial cycle of economic booms and busts. This can create an illusion of prosperity. Eventually, reality catches up to the Federal Reserve created fantasies. When that happens, there is a recession or worse, leading the Fed to start the whole boom-bust cycle again. Actually, there's more factors to it than just that. One of the things that happens is that somebody will create something new, like, Satoshi Nakamoto will come up with Bitcoin, right? And there'll be legitimate organic interest in it. It'll grow. And then all of a sudden there'll be people entering into that from the traditional markets or, CEOs and whatnot of the legacy people that it would be replacing. And then all of a sudden the thing will boom, right? And it looks like everything is wonderful, but what's really going on is they're getting artificially influenced by getting all kinds of industrial money, or institutional money rather, and they don't know how to make the money. They never learn how to make the money because it's just given to them. They don't know how to run the maze. And so within 2 years, they run out of capital, and they end up coming back to the Fed or the proxy acting on behalf of the Fed, and with their hand out saying, "Hey, could we get another round of funding, please? Because kind of ran out of money, and we're facing having to close our doors." And by then, the proxy is saying, "Well, I could give you a little more money, right? But there's some terms that need to be met before I can just hand you a couple $100 million, right? I'm going to need something in return." And so they start selling their stake in the coin or the exchange or the project or whatever until they don't have any interest anymore and they get bought out. And I can't remember the entity, but there was recently a cryptocurrency exchange that happened to, where they just Poloniex, yeah, they pissed away a lot of their money in the background, and when it came down to it, they had about 40% stake that left in Poloniex, and they'd been staying alive the whole time on their proxy's money. And so when it came down to the exchange being sold, it was only like $400 million that they got for it. So anyway, continuing on. Like many in the crypto community, Ron Paul is a libertarian who opposes government intervention in the free market. The virtual currency community generally prefers the crypto ecosystem decentralized and unregulated. The crypto ecosystem's decentralized and unregulated market. Paul said that an economy that is not manipulated is better for society. Quote, "Not only should we audit the Federal Reserve, we should get rid of it," he said. Former crypto skeptic now embraces Bitcoin. Until very recently, Ron Paul was a staunch advocate of the gold standard who was critical of Bitcoin, as CCN reported. Quote, "Bitcoin is very exciting, but Bitcoin investors don't have a long-term perspective," Paul said in December of 2017. What's it going to be like in 10 years? Nobody knows, but we have a pretty good idea of where the gold will be, in a general sense. Paul has since changed his outlook on crypto and now says he believes that Bitcoin and a gold-backed cryptocurrency can coexist. Gold-backed currency, not cryptocurrency, can coexist in a free society. Actually, yes. The thing that will keep you honest is the fact that you have competition. Oh, and I was working up to that. These kids that don't know how to run the maze but have the cheese, one of the things they're usually coerced into is talking shit about competition, and also talking to regulators about potentially regulating their competition out. And they buy it. Either they buy it or the entity who eventually consumes them from the inside and becomes them, they advocate for more stringent regulatory standards. And by then they've actually got an internal interest in the industry. Now whether or not the entity continues to survive after being fully occupied by the host, or not the host, the parasite rather. After the parasite fully takes over operations and whatnot, they usually don't stay around for too long. And the entity that controls whatever the interest in, that bought the interest up in it, they'll sell off the parts that they don't like, and they'll keep the parts that they like, through corporate restructuring. But that creates, though, in the market, these boom bust cycles. Is that first you have everybody and their brother getting into it. There's all kinds of excitement. Everything is going great. And then all of a sudden the regulations start getting a little tighter, and a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter, a little bit tighter. And then down to the legacy entities that initially took hold into it, or that we were seeking to replace with it, have fully taken it over and got it legislated on the other end and are manipulating it and got it all down to a science to where only they are making money and everybody else can go fuck themselves. See, this cheats you of your stake over time, right? When you're a customer with, say, Poloniex, before they started selling their ass and selling your ass too, you had a service, you had a standard of a service, and then slowly over time it went away, and slowly over time it went away until it's a completely different experience for you logging on now as compared to when you originally started with them. And what's been going on in the background, again, is this whole process of winnowing down control and taking away your stake and taking away your stake. Well, here's the problem with that in cryptocurrencies. Once you have no stake in it, you lose interest in it. Yeah, we've actually seen examples of this already in cryptocurrencies. When GPU mining became a thing, all of the people that were on CPUs went to GPUs. And then when ASICs came on, a lot of those people that were mining with GPUs either switched to altcoins or stopped mining entirely. In ASICs, we've seen multiple iterations where the people who could afford to transition from GPUs to ASICs were operating just fine, and then they just slowly winnowed down to nothing. Or they were taken over and then collapsed, or their focus changed, or something to that effect. And so you end up with fewer and fewer entities providing the hashing power. And it's getting more and more expensive to do the mining, both in electricity, regulatory morass, permits, blah, 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 blah. Right? And so that's the point that we're transitioning to other things. I mean, what happened the last time that we had that transition from, say, GPUs to ASICs? We had the alt bloom. And now it seems like mining hardware is probably cheaper than it has ever been before. And on top of that, the difficulties are lower because there are fewer miners out there. So now there's kind of an inflection point where we're having to make a decision. Do you want to get in on the thing and try to get some stake in it? Or do you want to just be subjected to it? And I think that some people are choosing to be subjected to it. And I think the majority of the people that would be interested in cryptocurrencies, that do have a reason for using them versus US dollars or fiat currencies, will be choosing currencies that they can develop a stake in, whether it be through developing an ICO of their own or actually getting the thing done. You know, having a use case and having a currency to fit it, or fit it the best. And when they're judging currencies on those standards, they're going to be looking at Bitcoin, and then they're going to be looking at Monero, and they're going to be looking at Ethereum, and they're going to be looking at a ton of other options that have live networks right now that could handle their transactions in the time frame that they desire. And that's without being off-chain or any of that other bullshit. So with that in perspective, you know, it's like, even if all of the all the transaction processing were to be monopolized by, say, Goldman Sachs on the Bitcoin network, let's just say it happened, right? And they corrupted Litecoin through atomic swaps and putting bullshit derivatives in on their blockchain in exchange for Litecoin or some shit like that. So you have those things going on. You're going to be looking at those coins and you're going to be saying, well, gosh, does it really sound like my best interest to continually jeopardize my funds on a live node on the potential that I'm going to be transacting with the same person multiple times instead of other people? Or am I going to, say, download a Verge wallet onto my phone and transact with the people that are willing to accept Verge as currency? Which one am I going to use? I'm going to use the one that fits my use case. And if it means that I have to shop places other than Walmart, as long as the person on the other end is fulfilling my order for the amount we agreed to, we can do commerce. And we could give a fuck what the rest of the world economy is doing. And I think honestly, this is one of the reasons why people talk shit about projects they're not involved in. You know, especially on the Bitcoin side, it seems, is that they don't want you to conceive of the idea that there's some alternative to this bullshit. that you know, you don't have to use Bitcoin in segregated witness wallets or using a segregated witness wallet. You don't have to use it on Lightning Network. You can still transact it with a simple Bitcoin QT wallet. Or even there's options out there like, say, blockchain.info. It's not the greatest wallet in the world, but it still works. And it works most of the time. Actually, I have yet to have a single instance where a transaction I initiated from a blockchain.info wallet didn't complete. So, I mean, with that in mind, it's like, that's all I need it to do. I need it to clear faster than 3 to 5 business days, i.e. Visa or my bank. I need it to settle in less than 3 to 5 business days. That's quite a long time. Now, if it settles in 30 seconds, that's wonderful. If it settles in 2 seconds, that's wonderful. If it settles in 10 minutes, that is fine. But I shouldn't be required to have some dedicated piece of hardware to it, other than, of course, my wallet, in order to transact it. Because Bitcoin was intended to be, designed to be transacted from something as simple as a wallet on your desktop or your phone or your tablet. Anything less than that, and somebody's trying to take something from you in exchange for this quote-unquote convenience. That's all I'm going to say on it. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and throw down into some music again. Let's go for some fucking White Zombie, Black Sunshine, here on Coin Metal. And that was Soundgarden with Jesus Christ Pose. Well, I've had a little time to flit about and find some more concrete stuff that I wanted to go on. And this one has been an interesting debacle. I don't think it's quite played out entirely yet, meaning that there is more to see on it. But it started with the close of last week on the markets. Dow took a shit. I mean, like, fell off the side of a cliff, kind of took a shit. And then there was a call from Mnuchin to several people, and we're going to cover that right now. This is on CNN.com. Mnuchin speaks with U.S. bank executives who reassure investors after Wall Street whiplash. This is by Donna Borak, CEN. Updated 5:38 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, December 23rd, 2018. Working on the weekend, eh, Donna? No penis. Washington, in a precautionary move, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin spent Sunday on the phone speaking with the chief executives of 6 of the country's largest banks to avoid yet another market whiplash when Wall Street opens on Monday. The secretary, who has been visiting his children in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, tried to get ahead of further market jitters following reports that President Donald Trump was consulting advisors about whether he had the legal authority to fire Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. In a series of calls with CEOs, Mnuchin spoke with Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan Chase, Tim Sloan of Wells Fargo, and David Solomon of Goldman Sachs. He also called James Gorman of Morgan Stanley, Brian Moynihan of Bank of America, and Citi's Michael Corbett. Each of these executives said they have, quote, ample liquidity to lend consumers, businesses, and perform other market operations, the Treasury Department said in a statement Sunday evening. Quote, we continue to see strong economic growth in the U.S. economy with robust activity from consumers and businesses. Yeah, it's called Christmas, dude. Mnuchin said in a statement. He added, quote, with the government shutdown, Treasury will have critical employees to maintain its core operations at Fiscal Services, IRS, and other critical functions within the department, like our trading desk. The secretary said none of the financial institutions had experienced, quote, any clearance or margin issues, and markets continue to function properly. Mnuchin, who chairs the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, will also convene a call with Powell, Jay Clayton, the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and Christopher Giancarlo, the chairman of the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission, to discuss how regulators can assure normal market operations. Yeah, you can't, dude. Quote, it's being preemptive, a person familiar with the matter told CNN. Quote, it's sending the proper message to the market so they can calculate the real picture into their Monday opening. They don't have to wait until something happens to be reassured. Yeah, okay, that's what you want to call it. Wall Street ended a brutal week on Friday on track for the worst month since the 2008 financial crisis, making it a rout that is threatened to stop the longest ever bull run. I think we're kind of over that. In his conversations with executives, the person said Mnuchin sought to convey the strength of the U.S. economy despite recent market turbulence. Quote, "The market volatility is not changing the strong fundamentals of the economy. The person's systems remain normal." It was the second time over the weekend Trump's top finance chief tried to send a reassuring message to investors over alleged plans to oust Powell. A day earlier, Mnuchin tweeted that he had spoken with the president, relaying a message from Trump. Quote, "I never suggested firing Chairman J. Powell, nor do I believe I have the right to do so. It's not clear whether..." You know what? That sounds like somebody is spinning this shit then. I mean, because that wasn't, "I'm going to fire that motherfucker Powell. If I got to go over Congress and the Senate and everybody else, I'm going to fire that motherfucker." No, that was, "I never suggested firing Chairman J. Powell, nor do I believe I have the right to do so." Yeah, see, there's some spinning going on here, man. Continuing on. It's not clear whether Trump has the authority to fire Powell without cause, but a decision by the president to fire his Fed chairman would likely exacerbate recent market volatility seen over the last several months, and top West Wing economic advisors have warned Trump that such a move would only send markets nosediving. Yeah, okay. I'm sensing some spinning here. I'm sorry, Donna. You're like spinning this story like I don't know. Spinning some whole cloth here. I mean, because I'm smelling what was inferred here was that he didn't really say anything to "I'm going to fire Powell" or anybody say that he can't. He probably said, "I don't think I have the authority to do so," and somebody said, "Yeah, I don't think you do, dude." That was probably what was said there. Anyway, let's get in this thing. Interest rates have gone up 7 times since Trump took office. 4 of those increases have been under Powell. When asked about pressure from the White House, Powell told reporters Wednesday, quote, "We're going to do our jobs the way we've always done them," stressing the importance of the Fed's independence from from political pressure. Quote, "Nothing will cause us to deviate from that." Whipsaw markets and a string of steep dives have spawned a pervasive anxiety in the White House, according to senior officials, where the past 2 years the strength of the U.S. economy has provided steady reassurance amid even the deepest of political crises. As Trump faces fresh vulnerability, most aspects of his life are under investigation, just as Democrats are preparing to assume control of the House. The economy no longer offers the same comfort it once did, despite rising wages and the lowest unemployment rate in half a century, according to interviews with multiple White House officials and people close to Trump. The volatility comes after several disappointments, including General Motors' decision last month to shutter plants in Ohio and Michigan, a business move that struck deep in the heart of MAGA country, where Trump wooed voters away from Democrats with repeated pledges to bring back lost manufacturing jobs. Actually, I think he's going to fulfill on that one. I know that CNN doesn't have a whole lot of confidence about that, but think about it this way. If we're no longer shipping it from China, somebody has to make the ship. And that's probably the people that would normally be objecting to the level of employment in this country. Yeah. Let's see. Am I looking for your purposes? No, I've not heard of AzureCast. Sorry, that was somebody messaging me on Discord. And I'll look into it, dude. That might help. Anything helps. Or not anything, but some things help. And this is... I don't think that... number one, I don't think Trump is an interventionist enough to fire Jay Powell. That's... And the other thing is what kind of signal would it send to the market? And I'm sure that, unlike a lot of people try to frame him as, I'm sure that he understands what kind of signal that would send to the market. That basically Trump is in control of the market, and he can just gank the goddamn head of the Federal Reserve at any time. And like as it was stated buried in that CNN article, Donna, he didn't really say that he was looking to fire Powell, number one, and number two, he didn't think it was his right to do so. So yeah, I think my message from that is, I'm not an interventionist in the federal policy, the Federal Reserve's policy. I might not like what's happening in the market, but I don't have the authority nor the desire to go to those motherfuckers and tell them how to run their show. They know what they're doing in the extent that they know how to do their jobs. Whether or not they're doing the right thing, that's an entirely different discussion. Arguably the Federal Reserve has yet to do the quote-unquote right thing for the vast majority of us for a long time. They could have gotten way farther if they took that fucking TARP money that they issued to the banks and stuff. If they had given that to individuals, just issued them a big fat check according to their their social security number maybe, and their last associated address with that social security number. If they took the TARP money that they put out there in addition to QE 1, 2, and 3, and just dispersed those funds directly to the American public, that would have stimulated enough economic activity to offset whatever gain they got just by giving it to the banks. Anyway, I was going to go into this article, but it's fucking old. It's December 4th, 2018. That's old. Let's see if there's anything else on the side here. I was looking for something about that, or that particular entity, but I'm not going to cover this article because it's way too fucking old. And that one's even older. Gee willikers. But this one's pretty new. So, we're going to go according to plan. Even though these are older articles, they will convey the main thesis we're writing on here. Anyway, this is on ccn.com. December 4th, 2018 to 2235 CET. Stablecoin wars. Bitfinex adopts neutral stance and lists major Tether competitors. Bitfinex opens platform to Tether competitors. As Bitfinex writes, for years the only major option in stablecoins was Tether USDT, and for quite a while Bitfinex was the only way to cash your Tether successfully. You'd have to pay Bitfinex withdrawal fees, but they offered a 1-to-1 redemption, which they recently revoked, spurring Tether to reinstate its own redemption program, complete with a questionably high fee schedule. Quote, at Bitfinex and Etfinex, we are dedicated to providing a high-quality, unbiased meeting place for every ecosystem and customer. We were the first to introduce alternative stablecoins onto our platform, including DAY, an Ethereum collateralized stablecoin, and now proudly introduce the following established stablecoins: USDC, DT, TrueUSD, Paxos, and Gemini USD. All stablecoins on Bitfinex and Etfinex will be traded against USD. Oh my god, dude. In addition to Tether USDC and Paxos Standard, which everyone seems to be integrating, Both exchanges also offer DAI, a very different type of stablecoin built on Ethereum, as well as TrueUSD and Gemini Exchange's GUSD. This last addition is notable in that Bitfinex is one of the first major exchanges other than Gemini to enable usage of it, likely leading to increased adoption of the Winklevoss twin stablecoin entrant. We should also note that they offer YERT, a Euro version of Tether. While in past times using USDT meant that you had a guaranteed 1-to-1 dollar ratio at Bitfinex, now they will have a varying, albeit quite small, rates according to supply and demand. Seemingly microscopic arbitrage opportunities will thus be created across stablecoins and currencies. On occasion, one will be able to buy one of these stablecoins for less than the dollar it costs through its issuer and sell it back for slightly more at a later date. This strategy isn't really profitable for those with small portfolios, but large and institutional investors will recognize the potential, and the move by itself is likely to stimulate renewed volume at Bitfinex and Ethfinex. The stablecoin market is very new, despite Tether having been around for several years, in that there are an increasing number of offerings which have most of the same properties. Paxos, Gemini, and USDC all offer free exchanges between the dollar and the token, which is important for those trying to gain traction in their crypto trading career. It can be expected that just as hundreds upon hundreds of altcoins and later tokens came onto the market, there will be an increasing number of stablecoin offerings, especially as traditional finance goes more and more crypto. Exchanges like Bitfinex appear already to support anything their customers might use, while others such as Binance appear more reluctant to add stablecoin tokens without significant demand. That's a wise move, Binance. What we have yet to see but expect to see is the advent of Asia-specific stablecoins for currencies like Chinese yuan and Japanese yen. Such additions will essentially enable crypto traders to have a global reach and the ability to get from one continent to another in terms of financial liquidity with less effort than ever before, which will enable new types of payment platforms that had not previously been possible, even with the existence of Bitcoin. Yeah, and you will be probably easily taxed on them. Let's check out some of the comments on this. The first one is by Brighton Luciford. Well, a heroic feat from Bitfinex. They seem pretty average, really, and there aren't too many good reviews about them, but this thing kind of makes you think that they've started moving in a right direction. The next one is Marino Vincek. It all happens because they really care about traders. Thanks to Bitfinex, we have great opportunities. No. I got a completely different read on this, and I'll disclose that in a moment here. Ruben Amaro, I only root for DAI and Tether in stablecoins. Paxos is not going to last anyway. Gemini is a well-known crap coin. There's hardly any valuable stablecoin on the market. Actually, there's none. They're counterfeits. Let's see here. A wise decision of Bitfinex. At first, we will a choice, and second, it shows us how transparency and unprejudiced Bitfinex is. No, it doesn't. And that was by Keplin Nakan. Yeah, anyway. Let's see. Scaling down. Yeah, so anyway, with regard to this thing, I think this is a way to rob the Gemini twins. Because I think they're the only ones with confirmable liquidity reserves in order to cover the outstanding tokens that they have, and so yeah, I think this is a way to to rob the Winklevi. I said multiple times on the show, at least in earlier days when this thing was first being considered, that being Tether, that I thought that the whole concept of a stable coin was impossible, and I still feel that way. Mostly because the cryptosphere has already proven this. They proved it with Paycoin. It was the first quote-unquote stable coin. It was supposedly going to stay at a fixed rate of one coin to $20 in perpetuity. It lasted about 2 months. And then there were accusations of fraud and pump and dumps and so on and so forth. Well, I think quote-unquote stable coins are the second iteration of that. That we're talking about fractional reserves, yet again. They're probably actually within the 8-to-1 issuance ratio, generally accepted by banks and other investment institutions, claiming $8 for every $1 that they actually have. And Tether has never been 100% confirmed. They've never had a full audit. And the fact that these coins are accepted on these exchanges without having had, to my satisfaction at least, or at least to the public satisfaction of pretty much anybody who's ever asked about it, because these entities have all lacked an actual audit of their reserves, I would go so far as to suggest that they are actually proxies for central banks. And they have a very simple function, and that's to distort the relative value of cryptocurrencies on the market. Let me break it down for you. So say I've got a partnership with Bitfinex, and I'm a quote-unquote stable coin. I claim to have an assessed amount. I have, some coin that I've quote-unquote pre-mined, and that I've got one-to-one supposed association between my tokens and my US dollar volume in liquidity, actual liquid reserves that I can tap at any time and cash out one of my tokens for $1 US, right? But I don't really have that money. I've just managed to create the synthesis of actually having that money, or at least enough to satisfy Bitfinex to where they will collude with me and allow my stable coin, quote-unquote stable coin, onto their exchange. And what I do then is I sell my tokens for Bitcoin. And then I withdraw the Bitcoin and I go to an exchange like, say, Coinbase. And I wait till there, or maybe GDAX, or an actual place where I can set a price for it. And so I sell them at a loss for US dollars. And then I take the US dollars and boats and hose for a while or whatever, until I feel like I need to print up some more. And I print up some more. I claim to have the money that on the other side of the transaction. And here they are, and I'm going to sell them for Bitcoin at a loss. And then I'm going to sell the Bitcoin for a loss on the other exchange, and so on and so forth. And in doing so, I am depreciating Bitcoin against my quote-unquote stable coin, which is in turn depreciating in relative terms to US dollars. And the only reason I believe this is being allowed to happen is because it's the Federal Reserve in some cases, it's central banks in some cases, or a proxy acting on behalf of. The Federal Reserve has its own trading desk. You think they're not in crypto markets, you're just fooling yourself. And so the level of participation I'm speculating about here is not unfeasible. They've had plenty of time to be planning for this. But in any case, I believe that stablecoins are counterfeit currency, and that they're being used to depreciate the cryptocurrency markets. I mean, take a look at any chart Look at the point wherein the exchange adopted Tether as a proxy for a US dollar. And look at the chart. You'll see a straight-off decline in quote-unquote volatility. And it's because these monkeys are snatching it out from under you. Yeah. And just to give you an example of how far the wreck is going, and the fact that institutionals really don't have any regard for themselves, or other institutional players anyway. And that is the one saving grace of them is everybody's neck looks as good to them to bite onto. Anyway, continuing on, this one's on cryptonews.in. The cryptocurrency trading desk of Mike Novogratz has already lost $136 million in 9 months. And this is by Ashish Bhatnagar. And from the picture and the name, I'm going to say yes. Penis. Authored on November 29th, 2018 at 9:45, I'm assuming a.m. No indication of time zone. Bastard. The heat of cryptocurrency slump is not leaving its impact on retail and traders alone. Large funds and trading desks are also suffering from it. A prominent one among them is the desk of former Wall Street veteran Mike Novogratz, who was among the first Wall Street bigwigs to bet on cryptocurrencies. Oh, by the way, Blythe Masters bailed too. From the financial reports filed by his fund for this latest quarter, it's turning out that his clients have lost as much as $136 million in various cryptocurrencies within the 9 months long period of this year. Certainly this is not the kind of ROI that any trading desk would want to return to its clients. The desk of Mike Novogratz, called Galaxy Digital Holdings LP, is required to file detailed financial statements with exchanges and regulators. These documents provide a rare insight into how market leaders are going to manage things during this bear cycle. It turns out from the documents filed recently by Galaxy Digital that during the third quarter, the total realized and unrealized losses of the fund stood at $41 million. This amount, when added to losses of $95 million accrued during the first 2 quarters, brings the total to a loss of $136 million. The majority of this loss was caused by large bets placed on major cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Bitcoin, and XRP. Galaxy Digital blamed the poor trading volumes for these losses. In its filing documents, the fund said, quote, "While we continue to improve and strengthen our trading business, lack of overall trading volume in cryptocurrencies has been a headwind. That's because some people are actually thinking that they're going to be taxed on every single transaction they do, so they are doing less of them." Continuing, it was also revealed that the fair value of its assets stands at $90.6 million, according to September data, while assets cost as much as $172.7 million. Galaxy Digital's shares are trading at a record low for this news after this news came out. They've already drawn down by as much as 55% this month. The Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index is also down 44%. Galaxy itself hasn't responded to any queries in this regard. Nevertheless, Novogratz remains bullish about the future prospects of cryptocurrencies. He recently that market will return to normalcy in 2019. I'm assuming this was, he said recently that markets will return to normalcy in 2019, so there's nothing much to panic about. Yeah, that's the wrong signal to be sending to your customers. Yeah. This is predictable, you know. People are trying to assume your interest in cryptocurrencies, and because they don't understand your interest in cryptocurrencies, they misapply your funds at the wrong times, and they lose their asses for you. The truth of the matter is that you could have been acting far more nimbly than Mr. Novogratz or his trading desk in preserving your own funds. I mean, I am the worst trader in fucking crypto. The worst. No joke. I've lost a ton of money. Not that I had a lot of money to begin with, but the money that I had, I lost a lot of it. Okay? And so, I'd be the first to admit that. But Mr. Novogratz here would probably be the last, and if it weren't for his quarterly reports, probably wouldn't admit his total losses accrued to date, because that kind of tends to put off investors. And rightfully so. The fact of the matter is that Mike Novogratz should not be managing your funds. Not because Mike Novogratz is a bad guy, or that he's a terrible trader, or that he doesn't understand what he's doing. He is not you. He is not expressing your interests. He's expressing his interests in his ventures. So it's just as likely that he's counter trading on another set of books somewhere else, and the $136 million that you're seeing in your portfolio is turning up as a wad of cash in his. This is a conflict of interest aspect that I don't think many people take into account. That for every winner there is a loser, and the very same manager there could be the same manager behind two of them and picking winners and losers. Maybe drawing short straws. It's like, oh, okay, the Dashwood account, we're going to go ahead and snatch that one for this month, and we'll make sure our Morgan Stanley account is kept solvent by counter trading Dashwood. And blaming it on low volume, you can blame the regulators that you keep lobbying, asshole. They're the ones saying you can't trade here. If you're within the state of New York, you can't trade with anybody else. If you're in the state of Washington, if they're not licensed with us, you can't trade with them. That's the kind of shit that's causing the lower volatility or the lower trading volume. That and the shit like the IRS. I've had multiple people tell me this, and the fact of the matter is I don't intend to assess my taxes in the way that they're prescribing. I'm going to take my normal amount, right? And if I've cashed it out to fiat, or if I've used a cryptocurrency in a transaction as money, I'm going to count them as a taxable event. And that is outside of an exchange. As far as I'm concerned, the exchange is the poker table. What happens on the poker table is irrelevant to the IRS. It's what the money that I take off the table that they should care about, right? I mean, they're not going to reimburse me for my fucking trade fees, are they? No. Well, I don't want to fucking hear it then. So, again, if I assess an actual positive return into my bank account in fiat currency, that is a taxable event. And so I look at the tax bracket and I say, for self-employed for, $20,000, how much taxes would I have to assess for that? And I add, of course, capital gains, just to be certain. And I know that sounds kind of wonky to do, but the fact of the matter is paying capital gains, I'm probably paying actually more than they would be assessing off my trades. I trade on week and month intervals. So, trying to nick me on every single trade is not really the smartest way to go about it. Now, if I were doing like a bazillion trades a second and I'm moving like billions of dollars worth of liquidity, okay, fucking nick me on every single one of those because I got the liquidity to stab. When I get to that level, I'll be more than happy to be paying on the transaction. If. That's a big if. And given my track record so far, I don't say that's very likely, but, we can dream. We can dream, right? We can want. We can desire. Whether or not we ever achieve it, well, that's a whole different other story. But yeah, so putting your funds in somebody else's hands, whether it being on a hedge fund such as Mike Novogratz, or even on a cryptocurrency exchange, you're engendering a great level of trust in the custodian that you're endowing with your funds. And we've seen multiple instances, multiple different ways of people's funds being compromised. Where the places where we don't see it are where people have put the funds on a cold wallet. If it's a custodial account with somebody else, it's been hacked. There's been social engineering hacks. There's been all kinds of fucking hacks. Exchanges, same thing. They could be counter trading you. They could get hacked. They could keep their funds in a live hot wallet and it gets vacuum sucked by some intrepid hacker. That's happened. It could be a bunch of wash trades, bunch of in-house manipulation going on. That's happened. That's been documented. But where we haven't seen an actual loss in liquid funds is when they've been placed into a cold wallet. The only times we see that is when the cold wallet itself has been ganked. But there again, they have to have access, and that cuts down a lot of attack vectors. But yeah, if you're trading with somebody else or having somebody else trade for you, your first liability is the person trading for you. Whether they abscond with your funds, misreport their profits on your funds, trade against you and steal your funds. There's all kinds of attack vectors you open up yourself to that you do not have to incur. You do not have to entertain that. So whether or not he just pisses away the money that he's managing, or people just stop using his services, I don't expect trading houses to be like this, or to be acting for us, the individual cryptocurrency user, in any real capacity in the future. It's one of those instances where I think people will just get wrecked. Anyway, continuing on. We were talking about stablecoins earlier when we diverted off to Mr. Novogratz. And here it is. This is the next one in that series. This one was authored on December 26, 2018 at 1:45 CET. So it's much more recent. And this is on ccn.com. Crypto industry is betting big on the future of stablecoins. No. Institutionals are betting big on stablecoins. Continuing on. When merchants started including Bitcoin and similar digital currencies as one of their payment methods, they quickly encountered a significant problem: price volatility. That's actually not a bad problem. Anyway, continuing. There were instances like a luxury item dealership which used to accept Bitcoins for their products, but saw the value of their Ferrari cars jump by almost 33% during a test run. The company, dubbed as the White Company, later joined the popular trend of launching a quote-unquote stablecoin, a hybrid of blockchain and fiat money, which is promised to protect its balance sheets from subtle influences. No, it's a bunch of bullshit. What is stablecoin? Rather than fluctuating on the whims of traders' speculation, a stablecoin is a new blockchain-enabled breed that is characteristically pegged to a stable real-world asset, from commodities to currencies. Yeah, currencies aren't stable. Venezuela shows us that. For instance, users can purchase one stablecoin for $1 and then also redeem at later for the same price, thus eliminating the notorious crypto price swings. Yeah, to our detriment. The stablecoin industry became popular in the wake of 2018's crypto crash. The depression saw markets leading cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum losing 80 to 90% of their capitalization within a year. A majority of retail investors who were holding these volatile crypto assets decided to exchange them for stablecoins as part of their risk management strategy. Once the volatility settled, traders were redeeming their stablecoins for digital currencies as well as fiat currencies to exit the market and on minimized losses. Inbound investments. Stablecoins are not exciting as speculative assets, mainly because their backers supply only the portion that they can back against a stable real-world asset. They are highly attractive tools when it comes to retaining qualities of blockchain-enabled payment networks, save for remittance and hedging. No, they aren't. Cryptocurrencies are far more attractive. The institutional players have begun to realize the potential of stablecoins. As of November, the total investments made into the stablecoin space has touched $3 billion per. I think Tether has a total assessed value of more than that, supposedly. Anyway, continuing. A crypto research group, it has led the introduction of more than 120 stablecoin projects. What? Pfft. The Winklevi twins, for instance, launched a stablecoin for their Gemini Bitcoin exchange in September. Circle, a Goldman Sachs-backed crypto group, also partnered with a U.S. Bitcoin exchange Coinbase to launch a USD coin. Due diligence. Almost every new player in the stablecoin market is coming with their audit reports in hand, a record that verifies that the company that intends to issue its stablecoins has sufficient assets to back them. Some coin projects have even introduced features that allow them to freeze or delete coins to tackle money laundering acts. Popular stablecoin project Tether, meanwhile, has garnered criticism for refusing to get its balance sheets audited by an independent party. It has enabled a whole new competition to flourish in response, which includes more modern stablecoin projects like TrueUSD, Paxos, and Maker, in addition to Gemini Dollar and USD Coin, as discussed above. As the regulatory watch improves and companies begin to take due diligence seriously, 2019 could prove the year of the stablecoin. Advocates believe that in the long term, almost all the traditional industries would want to integrate a stablecoin solution. Issuance, lending, these are some of the categories that could start to grow into the trillions. Garrick Heilman, head of research at blockchain crypto wallet company, told FT. Social media giant has already announced that it would introduce a stablecoin to power P2P payments on its WhatsApp messenger. These fucking people are so stupid. So stupid. Let's get serious here, folks. If you can use WhatsApp to communicate with somebody, you can use Bitcoin to transact with them. That's right. They either copy and paste or type out their receive address into the messenger and hit send, and you can send them money. It's that fucking easy. Now, why do I want to use WhatsApp with a stable coin that I do not have any real knowledge of its backing? I mean, we assume that the people that are auditing the books of these entities are actually honest, that they're reputable. And we've seen in the case of Tether where the people that were supposedly doing their audits quit, and then they had some disruption with regard to who would do their banking and all kinds of other bullshit that would fuck you up. You know what I mean? They've actually lost their peg to the dollar by like 14 cents at one point this year. So that should give you some idea of how quote-unquote stable coins really are. And I mean, I feel bad even talking about them because I don't want people to use them. I believe that they are just a means of counterfeiting, you know. and that ultimately they will be shown to be exactly that. That there will be a liquidity issue where there's, say, a run on Tether or something to that effect, and that will whip the fucking cloth right off the table there, and we'll see that it's completely bare and empty underneath. That there's no billions and billions of dollars, and that's going to ruin the illusion of stable coins. I've told you people many times before that stable coins can't be stable for a very specific reason. They're acting as a proxy for a fiat currency that A, they do not know the total volume in circulation. They do not know the total volume. B, they do not know the total volume in creation. C, they do not know the true issuance rate of the underlying currency. All of these things can affect the underlying value of this coin that they're supposedly using as a proxy. As an underlying value for their proxy coin. If you cannot assure these things, you do not know the relative value of your token in US dollars or any other fiat currency. The Fed pulls what they did recently now with the 0.25% bump on the interest rate. What's that going to do to the value of your fucking stable coin? How are you going to compensate for that on the side of your stable coin and be 100% liquid? I don't understand. Unless they're doing what I'm talking about, where they're taking those tokens, they're selling them at a loss for Bitcoin, and then they're taking the Bitcoin somewhere else and selling that at a loss too. And then going back and maybe buying the Bitcoin with US dollars, and then when it goes up in value, they sell it again for US dollars and work it just like you do. But the point being is that there's never been a 100% audit on one of these, and so again, you've got a coin that's attached to something that they have absolutely no control over and no total knowledge of, but they're confident enough in it that they'll be able to compensate for any adjustments the Federal Reserve makes or what the market at large decides. There's been this thing recently where there's kind of a push to de-dollarize oil within certain nations. Meaning sell the oil for, say, euros or other currencies or gold. What does that do to the underlying value of the US dollar, or the Federal Reserve note as I like to call it, because that's what it is. Read it sometime. That's what it says on it. What's that going to do to the relative value of the Federal Reserve note? That's going to diminish some of the confidence in it, don't you think? If, say, the BRICS nations were to get together, although I think they're looking at the EU and they're seeing the impracticality of the euro and how it allows market distortions in relative value of a nation's currency, some being worth less because some actually do less. And they're saying that, no, that's probably not a good idea because we all have our own reserves of commodities such as oil, gold, silver, diamonds, whatever, that we can sell on the market. And if we're independent of you currency-wise, then we won't suffer whatever economic issues that you're experiencing on our books. Just a good way to do it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, I haven't played any Slipknot tonight. There's something wrong with that. So here it is. Custer. Here on Coin Metal. Oh, wow. I hate doing that. I hate cutting it off short. That was Nevermore with Born. But we only got a few minutes left, and I just found this article here on cryptoiq.co. And this is so much in line, and it could explain another point of distortion in the markets here that we should be paying attention to. This is authored on December 26, 2018 by Zachary Masich, or Mashach. My apologies. Yes, penis. An analysis of Bitcoin market reaction when CME futures contract expire. The Federal Reserve says the Bitcoin futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange are the reason for the Bitcoin bear market began. Indeed, in the December 17th, 2017 launch date of the CME Bitcoin futures coincided with the beginning of Bitcoin's crash from $20,000 to as low as $3,000 in December of 2018. This is perhaps due to immense short-selling pressure combined with the printing of vast quantities of paper bitcoins on CME. The Bitcoin futures on CME are operated by Globex, the same organization that suppresses global gold prices via the printing of paper gold on COMEX. Aside from the long-term damaging effects on the Bitcoin market, it seems possible that there are shorter-term impacts associated with the expiration of futures contracts. The CME Bitcoin futures contracts for a particular month expire on the last Friday of the month, except if there is a holiday in the United Kingdom or United States. A full list of CME Bitcoin futures contract expiration dates can be found at this link, and we're not going to follow it. This expiration date marks the benchmark used to pay out profits and losses, and it's possible that futures traders manipulate the price of Bitcoin to optimize their profits. For example, when shorting, a common practice is, quote, banging the close, in which traders manipulate the underlying asset's spot price to drop lower to increase profits from short selling. It is also possible for traders to long positions to manipulate the market to go higher, to go higher right as the expiration happens, which could perhaps also be called banging the close. In this analysis, Crypto IQ explores the actual data to see if there is any anomalous activity around the time the CME futures contracts expire. Yeah, and I'm going to leave it right there, but yeah, you guys ought to check that out. That's definitely in line with what we've been talking about with regard to manipulation of the cryptocurrency markets from exogenous sources. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Certainly not with the stable coin. Thank you very, very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. And until Friday, y'all have an excellent evening. As far as our last dance is concerned, it's going to be the standard, kids. System of a Down. Bounce. Here on Coin Metal, Last Dance. Thank you again for listening, and you all have an excellent evening.